But for this one, what I think it would be good to tackle is some of the stuff that the community has expressed interest in. So I think 2 days ago, I put out a poll on which topics people are interested in. And it seems like people are interested more in rubric and rubric generations. Which is sort of this new, I guess, front end that I added to the command center now to Rubric, in order to just better manage images and videos. So I'll take you guys through it, and I'll also share with you how I use it now. Honestly, with these things, it's so like I'm finding that with working with agentic AI platforms like Claude Code or Anti Gravity or even OpenClaw, like it seems to be so personal to each and every person. Like we have like different styles of work and different preferences, and sometimes like the more that you get to know these tools, you sort of blend or flex whatever tool that you get into whatever it is that you want. Thanks, obviously, because of the fact that a lot of these models can now pretty much understand code to a level that has never been possible before. So let me just share my screen. I'll just show you what I mean when I say rubric generations. I think I sort of gave a preview of this in the last session. Oh, there you go. Okay, think I can probably minimize this, can't I? Yeah, there you go. So you guys can see the whole thing. All right, perfect. So Rubric, what is it? Honestly, it's just my personal AI command center, is what I'm calling it. But I just made it for myself mainly and for our work in Robo Labs because I feel like so we have the way that we use agentic AI platforms now. You either have the terminal view, which is good if you're a developer and you're used to like sort of code flying by. The way that I use it mainly is through an IDE like Anti Gravity, so an integrated development environment. Maybe I can show this one. And essentially, how that works is it's okay, right? So in here, you're able to just take a preview of your files, and you're able to just connect and talk to your agents on a per session basis. But I feel like there's always that need to have like a visual layer to things, especially since when you have a lot of sessions going on, it is actually much harder to context switch and context manage than it looks. And a lot of people are not used to, for example, talking to three chat windows at once. So it seems to be like a new developing skill to context switch between tabs. And then one of the things, obviously, that a lot of the people in the community are after and are interested in is when it comes to generative AI models, right? So it has stabilized quite a bit. So if I show like the models that I have linked up here, I think when it comes to images, mainly you are just if I were to recommend like the top image model that you would use, I would just direct people to Nano Banana 2 because that has been quite stellar. And if I, let's say, want images that are transparent because for GPT image 1.5 can do that, then I just default to GPT image 1.5. But there's other models, right? Like C Dream for images, and obviously there's others that are open source as well. But in terms of just what the top ones are, like these would be like the cream of the crop. And then same for video, where I think it's either Kling or VO 3.1 that are default for people right now, at least for me. And the way that I've been using this, at least for our content and for our educational lessons, is that I just use this in order to sort of instantly and quickly create B-roll for us. So there was a video that I just published this morning actually, regarding this sort of MARP slides for Claude Code, which Andrei Karpathy of OpenAI and head of Tesla AI fame talked about in his Twitter post, which sort of went semi-viral. And basically, what I did here is I just used the generations tab and Claude Code to create B-roll footage for it. So usually my process, and I'll show you guys in a bit, is I just give like a lot of direction, not really a lot, but like I give a prompt to Claude Code to create me B-roll footage. And then the output of that would be like these specific styles where, okay, take a look. So I asked Claude Code to take a look at the script or the research that it did, especially that part about the very first few sentences in there that I said in the video. And then I just ask it to think of B-roll footage for me. And then when I'm satisfied with that, that's when I ask it to, okay, now use Kling in order to animate these images. And so in that whole part of the process, if you guys remember, maybe those who have been using N8N before, it used to take a while in order to sort of link these things together, and you need to understand how the JSON payload works in that whole structure. In this whole process, I don't even see what the prompt was that Claude Code submitted for these. It just happened, and I just double checked that the images are right and correct before I pass it along to the video. And then there's a references tab here because I find that, let's say for me, I educate a lot with regard to these tools. So let's say this is the MARP logo. So I can easily either star it so that it's easy to find. And there's like a star filter here as well. And I can also copy the path to it so that if I want to talk to my agent, which is I'm using Claude Code now, I can just copy that path and instantly paste it. I think you guys can see here, let's say in the URL, that's what it's look like. And that just gives Claude Code instant context that this is exactly what I am talking about. And there, so very basic. Like I think if you want more, let's say views like this filters where I wanted like extra, let's say columns so that I can sort of zoom out. I just added this as well. I have this models sort of view in order to just give me understanding of, okay, for each model, where is it sourced from? Like sample Kling by default gets it from KAI, which I'll talk more about in a sec. And then what are the aspect ratios? And then the other thing that I added is this styles section. So consistently, like if you are working in some sort of branding effort or have a style design for a particular brand or product or client or what have you, it's always almost good to sort of have that piece of reference for different styles. So this one, like if you've seen the recent videos, I just found that this sort of 32-bit, 64-bit styles would be interesting, especially with the Robo Nuggets branding. But I also included some liquid glass 3D style, and these ones I just added earlier with Cloud Code. So that is sort of the overview, I guess. But I think this is all visual, right? So it's much easier to understand. But I think the sort of fruit of it or the value of it comes when you sort of talk to Cloud Code and just actually me showing you how I actually talk to my agents in order to achieve these outputs quickly. But yeah, so maybe I'll pause there to see if you guys have questions. And also, I think there's a few more people who joined the call. Erica, hello. Pedro and Savvy, hey guys, great to see you. Okay, who are any questions on the chat? Yeah, so I'm actually curious. Like, anyone been using Rubric? I know, for example, Christoph has sort of shared some resources on Rubric. Um, any questions so far, or any notes from what we shared thus far, or happy to just proceed if not?
I kind of took Rubric and used it as a base for what I'm doing.
Perfect. Yeah.
I can show it to you, but it's yeah. I mean I didn't see the value, although now I do. I really didn't use the skill tree. I'm using more Teams, calendar, dashboard, and tasks.
Mm.
Uh, so it's been a great, it just took that all off my, plate to be able to just throw that into Cloud Code and say, here's where, and I took screenshots sometimes
Yeah.
of your video. Uh, so I'm customizing it. I certainly don't think it's as elegant as yours, but it's a real great starting point for me for wanting to customize it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I think that's the value for Rubric. I think is that it gives us all a starting point, like a really nice design. I remember with OpenClaw when I first tried OpenClaw and the sort of idea of having a mission control, a command center first pop up, and I just asked it to make me one. It didn't really do a really good job in terms of the aesthetic, in my view. And so having sort of this base is great because then you have this styling of the outfit font is what I'm using here, and then even the fact that it generates SVG icons for you, like whenever I like add new tabs now, it's almost automatic. I think is the value of it, and I think that it varies in terms of I'm just thinking what the future is actually sometimes with regard to the way we work with our agents, because you guys probably either use Cloud Code or Anti-Gravity is a great example also of the fact that it is a fork of VS Code, which is like this IDE platform, but it's not perfect is what I'm seeing. I imagine that at some point in the future, one of these companies, and I think actually Cursor, who is sort of started with forking VS Code as an IDE. I think Cursor Tree is no longer a fork of VS Code. And so these companies are trying to figure out what is the right software to effectively work with these AI agents, right? And you see Claude trying a lot of things. That's why sometimes it confuses people that, oh, there's a desktop app and you can use Cowork there, but you can also use Claude Code there, or you can run it in your terminal if you're a bit of a developer, or if you're sort of midway, then you can add an extension in VS Code. So I predict that at some point, maybe half two of this year, that there will be some sort of and then you have OpenClaw, right, which brought which brought the sort of idea of agents to messaging platforms. And so I predict that at some point in the future, maybe the next few months, there will be some sort of custom software for agents, or maybe it's just the fact that we'll all be using VS Codes or whatever custom or whatever custom software that we have in order to talk to the agents. Um, but
Well,
yeah, all that to say that command centers like Rubrik is a good sort of visual layer to it, just to bring everything together.
aren't there already some like SaaS programs like Base 44 where
Mm,
you can build agents pretty much just sort of like like Lego blocks? I don't know. I just turned my son on to it, who knows nothing about coding, and he built out like two or three really sophisticated websites, and I was just blown away that that tool had so much power.
yeah, absolutely. I think Base 44 is more like, I haven't tried it personally because there's so many tools to try, but it's more like a lovable and bolt.new equivalent, where it's the same sort of chat interface, but it just automatically hosts or puts your files in the cloud, I guess securely. But it's not so different versus, let's say, opening up an IDE like Anti-Gravity and connecting Cloud Code there. Except the difference, obviously, with Anti-Gravity is that all these files are in my computer somewhere. I don't know where. Well, I do know where if I copy the path. But yeah, so I think Cursor 3.0, and I haven't tried it, but from what I've read, it does seem like it is finally a non-fork of VS Code, which is pretty new. Um, cool. All right. So let's see. So I think what would be useful for a lot of people who want to install rubric generations. And by the way, like this view, usually the process of releasing these views is I just sort of test it out myself just to sort of harden it and make it a bit more robust, because sometimes there may be bugs, right? But now at least it is a bit more stable. I'm pretty confident that if people get this whole view and implement it for their setup, they'll have like a pretty good experience with it. But essentially, the way that I use this is exactly what I mentioned earlier. So let me just pull up what was the chat that I was talking about to earlier. Yeah, this one. So just to give a sort of a peek on the behind the scenes, I guess. Whenever I come up with like things that I'm interested to talk about in like a lesson, what I do is I have Cloud Code sort of generate or create some sort of deep research to that topic and put it in my documents, right? And it just creates like a markdown file for it. So you can see here that this one, for example, is about the video that I shot yesterday. And then I just had it create this marpslides.md. So if I take a look at that, just so you guys can see, let me just go to the docs tab. This one as well, by the way, I will be releasing this separately, maybe on a separate topic. Like this one, like my Cloud Code now sort of understands what I like in terms of like titles, in terms of thumbnails, and then it just gives me things to say in the beginning, because I always find like this is like a YouTube thing where you would want to have like a hook. So this one I sort of just select and I just read it so that I don't have to think about it. But the script part, you can see these are mostly just bullet points, and it's just good for me to just have sort of a proper framework to follow. And so, if you're not doing YouTube or not doing content, then this may be really valuable for you as well. Like, let's say you need to give a presentation in to a client or to your peers or to your company, right? You can just have Claude Code do some research on it, create like bullet points against that, and then instantly have a script. Now, if you're creating videos on top of that, like some sort of learning material, then you can follow what I do here, where let's say this one for this session, what I said is for it to read the hook section of this script, and I wanted to generate the B-roll for this section. And I have this skill, which I will include as part of the sort of generations tab back, and it just instructs or tells Claude Code on how you can use the generations tab properly. And basically, my process usually is I do want to check for the quality of it. I think Andy had a question on it. Like I think at some point, as I train this more, like right now, I'm constantly getting better and better quality from it, because just in terms of iterations, it's figuring out how to make it better to align to my taste. But as a best practice, I always just ask it to suggest ideas first before generating the images. And for this one, because I wanted to illustrate it, I ask it to use both the liquid glass style and the 32-bit pixel style. And I know it knows that because over at generations, I do have it in here, right? If I want to quickly invoke it, I can also just copy this, for example, and then just give it to Cloud Code, and then that instantly just gives me that style. So you can imagine if you want a specific style or you want a specific sort of image design, then that is something that you can do as well. And I can probably show how to add more styles, because it's really, really easier than you think. And then the other thing that I do usually is if I obviously need actual people or actual logos in there, just so that the model doesn't decide that on itself, what I do very basically is I have this references tab. So here, I just either ask Cloud Code to look for images online, like this one of Carpathy. And if I click that, that also gives me the path. And this is basically the path for Andre's image here. So that's what I gave, so that it knows exactly what I mean. And also, I gave it this logo of MARP. And at least how I add it in, if I, let's say, have like a tool that I want to create a reference for. Obviously, all of these files just live in my computer, right? So you can just point it to that, or if you sort of drag an image in there, then you'll be able to map that as a quick reference, which is always a much better experience in my view. Now, from that, basically what I did is to give it this prompt and to suggest the ideas. And from that, it was able to read the script, understand the hook, and just give me a couple of ideas here at the bottom around what would be like a good sort of supporting B-roll for it. So from here, I can just decide, or sometimes what I usually do, because with Google, it is not that expensive to generate Nano Banana 2 images. What I actually do is just have it generate the whole thing and just give me all the images, because it's always much better to give me images to review rather than prompt text to review, is what I'm finding. And sometimes what I do, if I want to inspect a particular idea, is I actually ask it to show me how it would do the image in ASCII format. And ASCII is just a couple of lines that form a shape. So this is just a nice way for you to, let's say you're trying to save on images or cost of images. Like you can ask Claude Code to draw it via ASCII, and it will give you sort of a rough idea of what it's thinking about in terms of generating that image. And then what I just ask it to do is to try generating that image. And then what it basically did here under the hood is it called on Google's API, and it allowed me to preview these images without having to understand the JSON structure, without even having to review the prompt, and it just went ahead and did that. So again, going back to like no code make.com and 8N days, where you need to have like sort of a system prompt that creates the prompt. You don't need to review the prompts that get passed, but you do need to understand the JSON structure, right? And sometimes when you need to update from Nano Banana 1 to Nano Banana 2, then you need to update the JSON structure as well. So none of that is needed anymore with tools like Claude Code, which is pretty interesting. So I think the ones that it generated would be this one and this one, right? So then you're able to review quickly which one is more, I guess, palatable for you. So that's what I did. So you can see this was literally the sort of images that I did. There's a lot of volume because if you've been sort of in this space for quite a while, then you understand that volume is the key, and you understand also that starting with images before animating to videos is the key. And so sometimes I just literally ask it to, hey, especially for this sort of thumbnail or some of these B-roll, generate me in two styles, like one in pixel style, the other one in sort of liquid glass style. And it understands that, gives me options. And then the ones that I like let's say this one, what I usually do there is I just copy the paths that I think would be good to animate. And then I just give it back to Claude Code, let's say this one, and I say animate this image with Cling. And hopefully what it will do is now use that image as a sort of input and call on Cling, which right now I think it's connected to Key AI with or yeah, Key AI with, or wave speed as the fallback. And then it thinks of a prompt to animate it. Sometimes I think for the actual one in the video, I said animate this image with Cling. I want like a camera panning around. And then it gave me that video back. So yeah, you can see here it is giving me the actual process that it has here, which I no longer need to understand because I know that it posts that request to KAI and submitted that task. It does the polling. It thinks about, okay, is this is now ready? Roughly 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, I'll check. If not, then let's try again. And it's pretty useful because I find that with these services, which I can probably give a background on in case those of us who are new to this, what KAI and wave speed and what have you even are. But with these services, they allow you to call on their models pretty quickly and pretty cheaply as well. So maybe we can probably let that be and just review the output later. But this was the one that I did, I think, yesterday. And since these are all by batch, like I just ask it to, okay, these, and these, animate all of them. I don't even see the prompt, and then out comes the result. So that's how I guess powerful it is. That it is because right now, like if you don't have Rubric, the way that you would do this is you would probably need to go to, let's see, your sort of files in here and actually go to this generations folder, which this generations folder just maps to that same interface. And here you can have all those images, which are much harder to preview, right? But if you have that sort of front end, then you have all of the styles in there, you have all of the images in there, and the videos as well, somewhere in this really long list. Um, so that's sort of the process, right? I could probably take a step back and sort of unpeel this a bit because I think what's interesting is how this maps and how this is relevant if you are, let's say, thinking about creating your own software. And the fact that, like, if you think about Higgs field or free pick, this same thing that we just talked about and having this front end is literally what they do. So I can give more sort of intel and insight about that. But yeah, just pausing to see if there's like any questions or any notes from anyone. Okay. Andy, you have a question? Pretty poor output.
Yes. So yeah, about the topic that you mentioned about how we can recreate this kind of like sorry, replicating the VFX effects from Hexfield. I don't think the problem is actually the front end. It's more like the secret sauce on how we can prompt it so that we can have those effects.
Get it? Yeah. Yeah. Great question. I think obviously with Higgs field, like Higgs field is pretty big, right? And probably the most popular view of it, like if you go to Higgs field, the most popular view of it is there is like a grid view. Well, they have like a front page here, but they have like a grid view, and they have like a way for you to generate a prompt, or sorry, generate whatever you want with like a prompt in here. Usually the easiest way to do it is to actually take a screenshot of this and like ask Anti-Gravity or Claude Code to do it. But I just find that there needs to be sort of an intent on why you would want it. For example, with the rubric generations tab, you may notice that I don't even have like this prompt line anymore, right? So there's no way for me to type in a prompt here. And the reason why I did that, well, number one, I just like things to be simple. And number two, I actually don't type prompts anymore. Like there's no reason for me to do it. Like since the cost of generating images is pretty low now. In fact, with Google, if you use your Gmail account, you get like $300 free credits, which is enough for like, I don't know, more than 1,000 images probably. I just find that just generate the images and then I'll review. So that's why if you were looking to, let's say, replicate a website, then there needs to be an intention to it. But if you do want to do it, then you can just take a screenshot of this. And what you can do is also give it the sort of link to it so that it can understand as much as it can the HTML structure of the site. Because yeah, with a lot of these, obviously they have a whole team who does these, and this is also partly the reason why I think SaaS companies won't completely disappear, because to completely recreate something like this, that would incur a lot of tokens. It would incur a lot of effort still. But I feel that at some point, if you're just like a rapper and you have no sort of moat in terms of, let's say, the features that you add, then the sort of competitive advantage that you have lessens a lot versus if you have something like, for example, like if you're Nvidia, then that's one of the biggest moat that you have because you're the only ones who can create those GPUs at scale, right? But still, there's value because if I go to Cinema Studio, I'm sure that under the hood, and this is private, obviously, because so they will not publish it. They still just map back to the same models, right? I think this is Nano Banana 2 or Pro probably, and all they do is just have system prompts under the hood. So it's the same thing as if you talk to Claude Code. Like if you talk to Claude Code, there's actually a hidden system prompt that gets pre-injected every time, and now it's open source because it got leaked. But before it was private, and they probably improve it, right? But it is always that system prompt that is the secret sauce. So in the same way, like Rubric, um, like what Lauren said, anyone can just screenshot this. Anyone can now just paste in like a YouTube video to their agent and it grabs a transcript. And it does a fairly good job, honestly. But the functionality and the ability to direct your agents to do what you want is the skill, I think, to master. And there's multiple ways to do it. I could probably talk about it in that sort of vibe coding, in that app I'm trying to vibe code on my phone as an experiment. But one of the things that I shared is this drawbridge one, right? Where I think it's a pretty good open source tool. I made a lesson on it where basically if you have this extension, let's say if I can just press C and it will highlight the specific element that I wanted to talk about. And let's say this one, I can say that, hey, delete this tab. Then if I submit that, what happens under the hood is this just logs like a comment in one of my files that when I ask Claude Code, for example, to check the drawbridge comments, it has this skill that it understands exactly where to find this particular comment. Where I said I want to delete this tab, and it has a screenshot of what that is, and also a sort of a guide on which part of this whole HTML structure that part is obtained. So it's much easier in terms of finding and troubleshooting or spot checking design cues versus just talking to it. And yeah, I think this will get easier, Andy, honestly. Like this goes back to the fact that there's no perfect software yet or IDE to talk to your agents. But I think we are getting there, and I'm sure a lot of the big companies are racing towards that.
Hey
Cool.
Jake, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So in your generations, and you don't type a prompt in, and you're using a reference frame. So where is Claude Code getting the prompt from? Is it just from the skill that you created, the generation skill?
Great question. So the prompt is coming from Claude Code itself, so it thinks of it on the fly. The key is how do you sort of flex and sort of customize Claude Code to always think of good prompts. And the answer to that, as you said, Lawrence, is with the skill. Is this maybe I can give a peek on that. Honestly, with a lot of skills, maybe this is probably true for a lot of you guys as well. Like I doubt you know exactly what is in your markdown skills, or maybe there's a couple of people who know exactly what's in there. But even I haven't seen what's in here, so we'll see it together. But basically, the way you create a skill is you just ask your agents to do it for you, right? So this is the master generation skill. Has a description, so the agents know what it's about. And I think hopefully somewhere here, so it knows where to find my API keys, which is uses for key AI. Um, it has directions on how to name files so that it's much easier to look for them. And yeah, a couple of notes in here. Let me
Did
just
you
try to
fi- did you find that on GitHub or did you build that skill yourself?
I build it out. I build it out. I think with these things, and anyway, even if you find it on GitHub, with skills on GitHub or things that you build out yourself, it's always good to just customize them, right? So my practice is I create this generations tab, I try it out, and then after that session, where I give it comments, I just ask it from this whole session, what do you think are the things that you can improve this skill on? And sometimes, if I want to direct it, I ask it to give me numbered questions. So it gives like one, this is what I want, two, and then I can just give feedback. And then it can sort of edit this myself. So yeah, so you can see there's a lot of guidelines here around the styles. There's general rules. Like even I can take you through this because it's my agent who did it, and somehow it's able to get this context and understand these prompt tips and so on. Um, and same, for example, with these styles, the reason why I had this is because I just wanted like a visual reference that, okay, this is what I want. Like I want a cinematic liquid glass. So, for example, just to give you a live, I guess, instance of how I add a new style to that. Like earlier, what I did, so what I ask it here is I want to add a new style to the generations tab. So just 5 unique styles so I can choose based on what you think is good for my work. And even misspelled a lot of things there, but thankfully Opus is quite smart. So it was able to just think of those styles. And there's one here on isometric, tech, papercraft, and what have you. And there's others here that I didn't tell it to do. And then I said, let's do 1 and 2, and then generate the image and add to the styles. So that's what it did, right? So it called on Nano Banana 2, probably. I don't even know. But then what happened in the end is it added these 2 new styles and added it here. Actually, let's do 4, add that as well. Let's see if that will be successful. But basically, that's how you sort of guide it to create better new prompts. So now, next time that I want like a paper craft style, I can just copy this and let's say give it to Claude Code, for example. And then because it has image visual capabilities, like it can look at this image and analyze it, it'll be able to understand that, oh, this is what Jay's talking about, like a paper craft style. So I will generate now a prompt to do that, right? So I think that's how you do it. One of the good things about Cloud Code is it's pretty smart with these things. Like if you give it the right inputs, like this has been like with data, with big data before in data science. One of the core tenets is garbage in, garbage out, guy go. So if you have your inputs as excellent, then your outputs are usually also excellent. So if you think about that framework, what are our inputs here? Your inputs would be an image to show exactly the style that you want. Your input would be that, let's say, that script that we fed earlier on the hook. And then now it generates the ideas for the B-roll, it generates the prompts for you, and it does sort of the piping under the hood to give it. Claymation added. Okay, let's see that. Yeah, there you go. So it gave me this now claymation prompt. And if I didn't like this, like let's say that looks too clayey, I don't know, or I want it to be, let's say, a bit more detailed and less cartoony. That's something that I can tweak as well, so that the next time that I have this style, then that is an option that I do. And this is pretty much back to the Higgs field example. This is like what Higgs field does, right? With Cinema Studio, I think they have options here for like either characters or locations, or sometimes like movies. Like I want it in the style of the Matrix. Like literally, what you can do is grab a screenshot of the Matrix and put it in references, or even have it as a style. And then now that's gonna be the style that your agent can follow, right? So again, good inputs generate good outputs. So having that sort of visual interface gives a lot of, I guess, flexibility in how we work. Yeah, I hope that was able to answer your question, Lawrence. I think I gave a few more stuff there. Um, I think, and the a more, yeah. So interestingly, I'll answer your questions here. Is there an open source for Higgs field? I got to know of one just I think yesterday. Have you guys seen that? So maybe this is a good sort of segue to, so in our industry, you have the models like Nano Banana, and the best, not really the best, but the most direct way to access them is obviously through the providers, right? So if I look for the API sort of key for Google's Nano Banana, you'll be able to find it pretty easily. Like this is the dev page, and let's say you want to add this to your generations tab. What I usually do is just give this website to Cloud Code or whatever agentic platform you use, and just ask it to add this as a model, and it will read this whole thing. Before, in olden times, which means like a few months ago, we used to need to look at this code and parse the parts that need to be included in N8N, for example. Now we don't really need to do that because you can just give this whole thing. So that's the most direct way. The second way to do it, because if, for example, you want to use Kling API directly, it's actually really difficult. Like you need to sign up to their platform and so on. And it becomes a headache because you need to maintain multiple accounts with Google, with Kling, with One, with Alibaba, right? And so these sort of services have spun up where they're either these type, where they're for more for normal people, where you need to just log in. And Hicksville is pretty heavy on the marketing. That's why you hear them around with a lot of influencers everywhere. And they've approached us quite a lot also. And I think they're based in Kazakhstan. So them and FreePick are probably the leaders when it comes to having like this aggregation. But they charge a premium, right, because of the marketing that they need to spend. But there are actually these, they call themselves models as a service platforms. That's a bit more developer heavy. So this is, you guys probably already know this, but for those who are pretty new to this, File AI. So there's only three that I recommend generally. Like File AI is probably the market leader. They've been here the longest. They're also the most reliable. But the reason why I think I default to like the second option, which I'll show in a bit, is because File AI, because it's the most popular, sometimes the bandwidth and the costs are also a bit higher than usual. Not always, but sometimes, just because they are the market leader, and only by a few cents. But that matters a lot if you're generating a lot, right? Another one is wave speed. So I've talked about wave speed quite a lot, and they're actually the main one apart from Key that we use, because they have a lot of models here as well. Like you can see, there's like 200 plus, and they have a lot of the open source models, and it's pretty useful because if you're after some specific models, which a lot of the big providers don't provide. Yeah, one is, for example, Infinitalk, which gives you a long video. So none of the Kling or even Cdance can do 10-minute videos, for example, but Infinitalk can do that. But this is more for lip sync videos. Then Wave Speed's website would be your go-to. And then the other one that is popular, and I think we were probably one of the first ones who talked about them, is KAI. The only problem I had with KAI, so it's really cheap. It's probably the cheapest, which is why it is really popular. But the only problem I had with it is that many times it is actually returning status 500s. And what that means is somewhere in the whole pipeline, the computer they're using somewhere is overloaded, probably because it's cheap. So and that has always been a headache when it comes to N8N, right? Because it's very directive. But the good news is, with Cloud Code, for example, you can have KAI as the default. You can just say that, and then wave speed as the backup, if in case that sort of generation really needs to pull through. All that to say that I think with Higgs field, all they're really doing is establishing this wrapper against the same models. and just giving you the same sort of experience as Infinitalk and File AI. Now, because a lot of the agents are now sort of abstracting away or basically flattening that development layer, like you don't even need to look at code, then a lot of these other models providers would now be on a good position, I guess, to capture that market share. And so back to the open source Higgsfield option, I just got to know this Mu API.ai. I haven't used them before, but I think they were the ones who made this open Higgsfield alternative, this one. And apparently, what they did is like say like the one that you mentioned, Andy, earlier, where they open source this whole thing, and you can either run it yourself on your computer by asking Claude Code to copy this whole thing for you, or you can go to this website of theirs slash Open Higgsfield AI and have that same functionality. Obviously, it's not the same as Higgsfield, right? Like they only included a few of the, I guess, top features here, but it is pretty much the same thing where you have the models as service providers like KAI, Mu API in this case, and then they just handle a lot of the connections for you and aggregate everything here. So that's an option that I think a lot of people are realizing now. Yeah. Minimax, I actually haven't seen or tried Minimax in quite a while. Are they agentic platform now as well, Andy? I think last time I used Minimax was either one of their image or video models. Not sure if it's different now.
Well, they position themselves. I mean, they have like many different tiers of, I mean, different modality. Definitely do image, video, as well as like their cloud code alternatives. So
Mm,
they're positioning their kind of similar
interesting.
performance to the cloud code, but then when the rubber meets the road, it's not the same.
Not the same. Interesting. Yeah, you're right. There's an agent now front and center on their homepage. Yeah. So this is part of the struggle with being an AI professional, right? Like there's so many new tools. Like I haven't even tried this one. Like for example, a
It,
lot of people are using Manus, or a lot of people are using Gen Spark, but in the end, I think it's important to just understand what the underlying structures of them are, and just choose the one you want to use and works best for you. But yeah, maybe Minimax can do that too. But I doubt that I'll ever find out. And then your other question on drawbridge, unfortunately, so I could probably dissect this because this is one of the things that are interesting as well. So when it comes to any sort of communication work or client work or whatever, I guess learning that you need to do, you would probably have realized that using slides is one of the top things that would be good to learn and automate, right? Like especially in our practice, like we use slides a lot, and especially if you're reporting on results that it needs to come out like maybe every week or every month, then you need to have some sort of slides format that is templated. There are other like tools like Gamma.app. I think Canva's trying to get into this space as well. PowerPoint, I've had a lot of experience with PowerPoint and making slides in there. But when Karpati tweeted out that viral tweet, he talked about MARP, which I didn't realize was a thing. But MARP is just a markdown sort of file for presentations. It stands for Markdown Presentation Ecosystem. And when I explored it, I thought it was just going to be like basic bullet points, but apparently not. So, for example, this one, this is a markdown file. So it's all just text. And when I asked it to give me sort of a quick infographic on our generation staff versus Higgsfield, then it was able to look at the information that we have around the generation tab, research a bit on Higgsfield, and then gave me a pretty good graphic here. And now, if I actually, bring this out, then you can already present from here, right? Which is pretty cool. Or you can also export this into, I think maybe this one, or maybe it's in the, yeah, I think it's in the MD file that you can actually export this slide deck as well to PDF or PowerPoint, which is pretty useful. But yeah, so this one is already like almost present ready, right? You can use this for like a video if you need to talk about the topic or you need to quickly visualize something to understand it better. I used to do this with Notebook LM, but obviously that takes a lot of time. But with MARP, like in literally just a few seconds, it gives you this and it's free because it's all just marked down, which is pretty cool. I think ND though, to your question, because this is not on a browser on Chrome, I don't think that you can use Drawbridge to comment there. Um, so I literally just got to know this yesterday. So probably what one can do is maybe look at the markdown file and find, let's say, the specific part that you want to fix, and then you'll be able to sort of pinpoint that if you wish. Um, or maybe there's going to be a new tool. Like if that's very important, Cloud Code can probably think about a tool in order to do that as well. But yeah, so I'll probably use this a bit more, and especially in our practice, like with this sort of, because what you can do, like if you like this template, you can just save this, right? This is all just text. No one needs to understand it, but you can just tell Cloud Code, similar to what we're doing in Generations tab, that okay, this is the style that I want, then this is the template for the PowerPoint that I want, and then the next time that we create for this client, then I want to use this template. Give me the sort of PowerPoint slide for the results of our meta ads for the month of April, for example, and instantly, and then you can string that as part of a larger automation that gets those CSV files and then puts out that presentation pack for you month on month or week on week. Yeah, cool. Yeah, what I love about this MARC format is that it can be stored inside Obsidian. Exactly. Yeah, so it works hand in hand with the Obsidian piece that Karpati mentioned. Tools to give us the MARP editor, like the drawbridge one. Yeah, maybe I'll take a crack at that. Let's see. All right. I hope that was useful. Always nice to have like a smaller group because it's a bit more focused and we can chat a bit more. I think there's a couple of guys who dialed in. Andres, hello, hello. I don't think I've said hi yet to Femi and Lara, one of the regulars as well in our sessions. So great to see you guys live, and also to those who are watching this in the recording.
Thank you. So this is Femi. This is my first time here. I think I just subscribed a couple of days ago. And
Oh, welcome.
yeah, thank you. My main priority is I'm just trying to build me a website right now. And I just really loved your website with all the animations and the rest. And
Mm.
I think Rubik will probably become available to me by tomorrow because I think it's 3 days or so. And so I was just trying to find out how can I quickly have that built. I already have everything I need, all the information I need to input. But
Mhm.
just be looking for guidance on like you can give me like a document or like a straightforward process to say just do this, do this, do this, do this, and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the one you're looking for is R60, I believe, for the animated websites. The process there is actually already illustrated there. And if you get to install that skill, that would also guide your Cloud Code on how to do the step by step. And in fact, I think I still have it here. So I use this because it's pretty useful when presenting to you guys, educating, and also presenting to clients, right? Because how it works really is when you install that skill, and again, it's all just text, it's all just markdown files. It does these specific steps, which you can watch that video for more info. But I think my advice to you, Femi, is especially in the very beginning, if it's your first website, ask your agent, your AI agent, to do it step by step, so that you can have those quality gates. You can inspect the quality as you go, because
Okay.
maybe the very first time that you run it, it might not fit to what you want. So, for example, I think it's still live. This ramen bar. Let's see if I have it. Maybe it's not because it's been a while. Oh, it's still here. So for example, this one, like
Yeah, this
the Cloud Code skill will get you to this piece, but for you to find like a video that is at least pretty neat like this one, I needed to guide it, right. Like I said, oh, I want like a shrimp ramen, and I want like this specific style where the ingredients are falling into the bowl. The good news
okay.
is at least a lot of that hand holding, like this dynamic elements that will be provided by the skill itself. And then you have that modules as well in order to create these more dynamic elements. But I guess directionally, my advice is to just do it step by step and check, because it's always going to be you who has that taste. Cloud Code by itself doesn't know yet what good looks like. It only has that skill to guide it, but it is
Okay.
not. It is not for all use cases, right? But yeah, I think that would take you milestone light years ahead of where you are.
Okay. I'll go look for that. Thank you.
Cool. Maybe to end, I did mention that I wanted to talk about. I just think that once you sort of start rolling and get into this space where you can have your AI agents do these things for you, it starts to become a bit more fun, right? So what I was doing in that sort of piece, that I think the second that people were interested in, is how I'm planning to vibe code a whole app using only my phone, and how I'm doing it. If you guys watch the other video around basically the whole piece on using Claude Code as a OpenClaw alternative, which just became a bit more topical now because Claude Code just banned OpenClaw, right? So this whole piece on my Telegram, it's really useful for me because every time I have an idea, I'm able to quickly spin up and talk to these guys in order to think about things that I think would be a good use of tokens. So for example, what I have here is, whenever I have like some downtime, I think I was outside here, I just ask this agent, which is sort of my developer workspace, to give me 3 quick tasks. And I think this is a skill that I ask it to make. And from that, it looked at my backlog. And all of these, like, I think I gave it at some point, because whenever I have an idea, I just give it like a piece of, okay, I want this. Can you log it to our backlog? And it maintains like a long markdown list of these ideas. And then these were the ones that it suggested that it can do while I'm on downtime, in a sense. And I said that, hey, actually, this is pretty interesting. This was an idea from like a few days ago, sort of a goal visualizer. And I thought about, okay, maybe it can sort of vibe code for me a product idea, right? And then I just asked it to give me a rundown of all the product ideas that I had so far. And these are all the ideas that I guess I talked about it at some point. And I won't talk all about it because there's quite a lot. Like for example, here maybe we can have like a new VS Code for agents, the one we were just talking about, having that goal visualizer. And then I said that from this, what I was really interested in is, I think I mentioned here, this 4,000 weeks app and this Hyrox app, which is something that we were planning to do this year. And then I asked it for the 4,000 weeks app, how easy it is to make this. And then I'm just thinking, and you can see this is like garbled. This is a garbled mess in terms of like, this is not even a proper way that you would talk to a person, for example. Like it's very voice to text, very obviously. But then it was able to give me that whole idea on how it would build it out. And then I just ask it to, and this is all on my mobile, and I think I was either typing it or talking to it via voice to chat. And I just said, hey, build an MVP, ask me questions, which is very important to clarify the intent. And then in terms of the design, I wanted to give me rubric style, so it will understand the outfit font, the styling, everything, which is pretty useful. And then, yeah, I gave it a bit more guidance there. And then it asked me questions, which is something that I can easily reply to. And so just from like a couple of minutes of work, it basically gave me this app, which is quite interesting. Obviously, it's not yet finished, but I think it's just a good sort of app that I, like years ago, I was thinking to build this app and there was no way for me to do it. And I'm not sure how many of you guys know this, but there is this book that I really like called 4,000 Weeks, where it just shows you, if the average lifespan of a person on Earth is 80 years old, then if you were to map out all of the weeks across the years, where each row here is 52 weeks, right? Then you can quickly and pretty, starkly realize how much of your life you've already spent, which is sort of usually something that takes people off guard. But I just find that it's a good reminder to, capture the weeks and capture the days, right? And in my view, like at some point, my perfect app would be this would be sort of a proper private log of what happened on each week. And so what Devo did here is it allowed me to give like these notes, which I probably won't write myself, right? Like if you can imagine this as an agent first app, then if you see people using this, then they probably won't go to each cell and write it, but you would just have your agent connect to this and quickly go through them in order to fill it up. And it also can function as a sort of a database, right, of your life. Anyway, not going too much about the detail of the app idea itself, but it's just interesting that now if you have like some proclivity with regard to operating these agentic platforms, and you have a bit of extra tokens remaining in your rate limit, then you can just talk to it and it'll be able to give you a pretty good idea or mock-up of something that you wanted to come as a come to life, basically. So I think that's a good way to do it. Like if you're thinking about doing it this way as well, then it would be I think productive to set up this sort of Telegram agent. And if you have some downtime, like this is not even work to me, like I was just sort of exploring and playing, then that's something that you can do as well. Cool.
Jay.
All right.
Jay,
And I think that's the time that we have. Thanks, guys. I'll answer the rest of the questions maybe in the comment section when we post this recording. But thanks all for coming, and I'll be posting this recording after this call. Have a good day, everyone.
thank you.
Thank you.